is going on, Crisis Actors? It is episode 1005 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett, and I am here once again with my guest co-host on Tuesdays. Introduce yourself, please.
That's right. I'm Colonel Kurtz. I am back. You can find me at Colonel Kurtz 99 everywhere.
Elvis is there too.
Elvis is still, yes, Elvis is still here. I know my backdrop is not impressive here other than Elvis, but I'm in the midst of a little bit of traveling back and forth. So anyway, things will be better, but at least you got Elvis back there.
You got Elvis. That's what matters. So how you doing?
Good. I felt like it was kind of a slow pop culture news week, but we came up with some stories, I think. So
so I feel that way a lot of the time, usually towards the end of the week. I love Mondays because usually there's an overabundance of stuff to talk about. And the other issue is, like, one of the things we're going to be getting into today is kind of the fallout of the BAFTAs, but that's not the same thing as like a genuine news story. And there's kind of, it runs the gamut on like what you like to talk about. So what I like to talk about a lot of times, it requires the audience that wants to follow up. Like, we're going to look into a little bit of Nick Reiner's his pleading of no guilty today. But those stories don't always necessarily do well because there's not always a ton of updates. We are going to get into it, and I do think there's some news stories here today. But guys, before we get started, would you all hit the like button on this video, please, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here and you have not subscribed here yet already. Please and thank you. Remember to share. What are we getting into today? We do have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Number one, of course, being... What are we getting into today? We do have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Number one, of course, being the X-Files... I don't know how to frame it. I don't know technically if this is a reboot. I don't know if this is a revival. I don't know if this is a reboot. I don't know if this is a revival. I don't know if those terms even really matter. I always just kind of say reboot, and some people get annoyed at the lack of specificity. But Ryan Coogler's upcoming X-Files series is going forward to order at Hulu. We're going to get into some of the details there, and I have about 2 pages of very, very haphazard and disorganized notes that will tell you everything that I want to say about the upcoming version of the show. I do hope that at some point my favorite YouTuber JB's Spooky Reviews either watches this episode or watches the segment maybe on the back end after we clip it, but he has a channel where all he talks about is kind of spooky and horror related stuff. But one of his biggest series over there is the X-Files. He does an individual recap of every episode, so I would be looking forward to hearing his thoughts on this as well. But we are going to talk about Ryan Coogler's X-Files. We are also going to talk about the fallout of the incident that happened the other night at the BAFTAs between yes, John Davidson, Michael B. Jordan, and Delroy Lindo. If you watched the show yesterday, you know what I'm talking about. There was a gentleman there who suffers from Tourette's syndrome. He was the basis of a movie called I Swear, which did end up winning for Best Actor at the BAFTAs, but he shouted a racial slur during Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo's presentation of another award, and it led to an absolute meltdown online of everybody fighting over who was in the wrong, whose responsibility it is to be either offended or not offended. It was a whole breakdown of societal order, and we'll get into it because there's some fallout there. There's been some responses finally given. We are also going to talk about Yoan, that's how you pronounce his name, Yoan Gruffudd, even though it looks like neither of those. He's, of course, from Fantastic Four. He was also in the short-lived series Forever, which everybody should go and see if you never got a chance to see it. It was fantastic. He is getting divorced, and his his ex-wife, she's trying to Amber Heard him. Her words, according to him, not mine.
She's a fucking nightmare, that woman. That's what I have to say. She's a fucking nightmare. So
we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter, Apple. Yes, that is in fact her real name. She is being accused of being a mean girl, and when you're a Nepo child, I suppose that's just the way of the world. We'll get into that. We got a bunch of other stuff. If you're ready to go, Kurtz, we can go. Are you ready?
Go for it. I'm ready.
All right, let's go for it, guys. By the way, let's get to a crisis party here today, guys. Let's go ahead and do it because we got a bunch of stuff to get into today. All right. Let's talk about Ryan Coogler's X-Files series. I'm just going to go through the article here, and then we'll get into our thoughts on it, because there's a lot to kind of go through here. So it says, Ryan Coogler's X-Files reboot lands Hulu pilot order. Danielle Deadwyler set to star. Now, here's my problem from the beginning. I don't know if it is a reboot, and I'll get into what I mean why when we go through this. So it says, the truth is out there. The truth is right here. Ryan Coogler's reboot, The X-Files, is officially moving forward with a pilot order at Hulu. In addition, Danielle Deadwyler is officially set to play one of the lead roles in the pilot, while the other lead role has yet to be cast. The official logline for the pilot states, this is the quote, two highly decorated but vastly different FBI agents form an unlikely bond when they are assigned to a long-shuttered division devoted to cases involving unexplained phenomenon. So this is my problem right from the beginning. If this was supposed to be a reboot of the series, they've already made changes, because in the original version of the show, Scully is only 2 years out of Quantico, and she's a medical doctor, so she's not exactly what you'd call an experienced agent. And the X-Files in the original show is not a shuttered division. Mulder has already been working the X-Files, and Scully was brought in to debunk, they don't explicitly state that, but we all know what, Section Chief Blevins wanted her to do. He wanted her to debunk everything that Mulder tried to investigate. So it's already making me wonder, is what we're looking at here going to be a straight reboot, in which case I guess she's playing Scully? Or is the idea here that she's going to come in, Mulder and Scully still exist in this series, they just no longer on the X-Files? It's literally been so long, it's been like a decade since they did the season 10 and 11, and I don't remember how it ended. I just remember not caring for it. I really usually stop watching.
It's only been a decade? I thought it was decades ago.
No, because so they brought it back in 2016. That's how long ago it was.
Oh, shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the show ended in the early 2000s.
Was that successful?
I mean, the ratings kind of went down as it went on, and they brought it back as a limited series. It was brought back, I believe season 10 was 6 episodes, and season 11 was like 10 or 12 or something like that. But it wasn't the traditional 22 episodes. I mean, I'm guessing that David Duchovny just doesn't want to do 22 episodes, and
they don't have to.
I don't blame him, right?
Yeah.
So, so here's the other thing that is kind of a red flag for this. So Ryan Coogler is the big selling point for this, because obviously he is considered one of today's visionary directors. He's a very big name in Hollywood. His movies have done very well at the box office, whether we're talking about Black Panther or Creed and obviously Sinners was the breakout kind of surprise hit last year. But he's not coming on to write every episode. He's bringing other people on to run the show. He's going to write and direct the pilot, but that doesn't mean anything if he hands it off to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So it says Coogler will write and direct and executive produce the pilot under his Proximity Media banner. Jennifer Yale of The Copenhagen Test and Your Friends and Neighbors will serve as showrunner. So I looked into her. The Copenhagen Test, I didn't watch. It's on Peacock with Simu Liu. Can't speak to its quality. The only other big titles that she really has attributed to her are the show C with Jason Momoa. I think that's an Apple TV thing, and a couple of other things, but nothing of like great note where you would be like, okay, this person has done a bunch of work, really building characters up. She goes all the way back. I guess she was like a staff writer on Dexter in the early seasons, but she doesn't have like a laundry list of credits that to me say that she would be like the perfect fit for like a prestigious sci-fi series. So it goes on and says, X-Files creator Chris Carter, Simone Harris of Proximity Media will co-executive produce. Of course, that's just putting his name on it. That doesn't, without Chris Carter writing his crazy conspiracy episodes, which were very, very up and down in quality, I don't even know if I necessarily believe that it's going to be able to capture the same tone as it. So this was announced back in 2023. So my question is this. Is it a reboot, or is it a continuation of the original series? Obviously, the idea that the X-Files have laid dormant for a period of time tells me that this is a continuation of the series. And I know that both David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson have both said that they would be open to the idea of coming back and doing guest spots on the show. But here's the other things, and you can interrupt me if you have something to say here at any point. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep yapping. So, in the age of the internet that we live in right now, there is no mystique anymore about the idea of small town America in the horror movie sense. One of the core tenets of the X-Files when it originally was conceived, because it was filmed in Vancouver, Canada. Eventually it moved to California in later seasons to like accommodate David Duchovny. But basically a bunch of Canadian forests stood in for small American towns. And that's because we felt disconnected from other people in America because we didn't have the internet. We weren't constantly connected to a device that could tell us what somebody in middle America was thinking. There was something kind of scary and untrustworthy about the places they visited. The cops were always rude to them and they were always rude to the local cops. So there's none of that mystique anymore because the internet has essentially destroyed that. Also, let's be completely honest, the conspiracy storyline about the government had a lot of whimsy in the early 90s, none of which is there anymore because people are unbelievably black-pilled to an even greater extent than they ever were before about government corruption. Now, they basically make the joke in some of the podcasts talking about the X-Files that it's like, it's fun to explore this series when Bill Clinton is in office because everything feels like it's okay. Not my quote, their quote. That was like Camille Nanjiani and some other people talking about that. Like basically they make the same comment. They made the same comments, like liberal media made the same comments when they made House of Cards. They're like, you know what? House of Cards is enjoyable when Barack Obama's in office because it doesn't feel real. Right? So none of that is accurate anymore. It's going to feel like they're trying to make some commentary on the government that's not even necessarily obvious. Also, I didn't see any mention of regulars that created the show and made it was, like Glenn and Darren Morgan, Rob Bowman, who went on to be very successful, Vince Gilligan, who went on to be very successful, obviously creating Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and now Pluribus, which are all very successful shows. These people are working. They've got stuff going on. I don't know if Ryan Coogler will even want to bring in old voices in a case like this because he might just want to create something new, and then you have to wonder what that will be like. I know you said that you watched some of the show and you remembered the movie and stuff like that. Does any of what I'm saying track with you as like a more casual fan?
Well, I would just say I would prepare Brett to be very disappointed.
Yes. Well, no. Set your expectations low. That's how I survive in Hollywood.
Yeah,
I set my expectations unbelievably low.
And for all the reasons that you just listed, why this concept would actually need some freshening up to be applicable or popular today, I think then that you can expect that it's going to deviate. I hope, I would be okay with it providing an update or changing the concept. I just hope that it's not another like one of these woke series or like either a Wuthering Heights even where they're trying so hard to be different or to push some lines or whatever, be edgy, that they end up losing the plot. And so I want to mention one other thing too, another factor that you didn't bring up as to why this will be, I think, less interesting to people now, or the old concept, is that there's such widespread acceptance now of things like UFOs and aliens to the point where basically you've got Barack Obama out there saying, yeah, and you've got Trump who's about to declassify a bunch of files. And I mean, the government's basically already told us.
Well, now they like people now basically, cynically speaking, they've turned aliens into a way to shift the news cycle. Like when we do something bad overseas, they're like, quick, mention UFOs because it changes the news cycle.
That's the perception, at least, right? And so I do think that the old concept is not going to work. That said, I'll tell you what I loved about the X-Files series that I hope that they keep. And by the way, what I love about, I'm not intentionally trying to mess with you here, but what I love about the old Star Trek TV show and The Next Generation is that I love the idea of an episodic series of mysteries that each week it's a new mystery. It's not just about developing a cast dynamic or telling their stories, but it's mostly centered on unboxing an interesting, suspenseful mystery. And I'm a fan of, the old Twilight Zone TV show as well. And so I think that whatever this new product is of the X-Files, if it can lean into that and just give us some really interesting storytelling, then that'll be good.
I think the reason why, and look, there's essentially two camps of X-Files fans. They're the ones who like the Monster of the Week episodes, and they're the ones who like the mythology episodes, the larger overarching conspiracy. Most of the people I know they started out as fans of the mythology. That was what hooked them. And then they later became fans of the Monster of the Week episodic format.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
It is harder, however, in my opinion, to pull off these days, because I think the reason why people end up loving the Monster of the Week episodes later is because it's the mythology episodes that builds up the dynamic and chemistry of the main characters, which then allows you to care about them as they're kind of shoved into these like ridiculous situations and, you know, and unknown places together. And you get the new story every week, but they're the backbone of that story is Mulder and Scully. So then the other question here, and the almost impossible thing that they have to solve, is how do you find two actors that capture that same amount of chemistry? Unless you're going to go, like, the craziest thing they could do right now is make it two women, since they casted one lady right there, and make it completely different in some way. Because if you hire a dude and a chick, for a lack of better terms, you're inviting the comparison to Mulder and Scully, assuming that this is, again, I'm operating under the principal idea here that this ends up being some type of continuation rather than a complete reboot with them being Mulder and Scully, because you're inviting people to compare the two of them. The other thing is, the reason that worked before is because they had 22 to 24 episodes a year to flesh out stories. All of my favorite episodes of the series are not season finales or even mid-season finales or even like individual season openers. My favorite episodes are the ones that almost nobody remembers. I speak about it all the time. Diary of a Cigarette Smoking Man is my favorite episode of the X-Files that's ever been made. Mulder and Scully are almost not in it at all because of availability reasons. I think it had to do with the making of the X-Files movie. They basically took the cigarette smoking man character, they put him on a soundstage and had him like listen to the lone gunman through like a microphone with a sniper rifle, and then it goes back and tells you the theoretical history of this character with flashbacks that don't involve any of the main characters. That works because you've developed a relationship between Mulder, Scully, the lone gunman, and the cigarette smoking man, which of course, as people kept pointing out in the chat, he'll probably be the Zin man now. He'll probably have Zins rather than cigarettes because we can't promote stuff like that. And without the 22 episode order, because it's being ordered to series at Hulu, I can guarantee you it doesn't go 22 episodes. 8 probably at minimum, maybe 12 to 16 at maximum per season, which means you'll get what they did with the X-Files when they rebooted it in 2016. They'll do a mythology episode to bookend the season, like episode 1 and episode 8. Right. And then episodes 2 through 7 will probably be Monster of the Week episodes that might have some overarching plot kind of thrown in there. And you can't recapture the innocence of the time period, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, I would prepare to be disappointed. And look, I was really disappointed. I was just thinking as you were talking about the Hulu Alien series. I was so excited about the fact that they were turning the alien concept into what was going to be a scary series, and it was a genuine horror series, right? And I felt like it was like a lot of people, a lot of viewers, I felt like that devolved quickly into something uninteresting, and they went on tangents that maybe the writers enjoyed, but that really weren't interesting for the viewers. And I don't know, I just feel like there's been such a recent history now of one show or one concept or one franchise after another being ruined by new revisions of it.
My point last night was like, this show will live and die on a new audience if they can manage to find a new audience. I don't think it will live and die on the original audience to the show. I've never, the only thing I've seen this actress in, Danielle Deadwyler, the only thing that I've seen her in was Carry On, and I remember liking that movie. This is an epidemic I'm having lately where I'm like, I remember liking it, but I remember nothing of it whatsoever. So she was in The Woman in the Yard, which I remember people calling unbelievably pretentious, but none of the other things that I see on here kind of tell me that she's ready for a role like this. But, you know, they would have said that about Gillian Anderson when she got cast as Scully, so that's not really a fair criticism yet, just to say that, you know, obviously she was the creator's first choice. Duchovny was known to an extent when the X-Files was made, because I believe Red Shoe Diaries had already cut out. It's also fair to point out that stuff isn't given a chance to percolate anymore. In season 1, somebody can fact check me on this, but if I remember correctly, out of 200 shows on television that year, it ranked 200 as far as viewership. Like it was like the lowest rated of the series.
It did take a while,
but
to build a
because
following.
Fox did it still got a renewal, because at that time Fox wasn't just canceling things immediately the way they would later become famous for also. But also, one last critique, and this kind of is the death knell to me: no Mark Snow. One of the most important things about the X-Files was its unbelievably unsettling, intense score. It made the show what it was, and Mark Snow passed away last year. He will not be able to be brought back to do anything for this series, so they're going to have to find somebody who can recapture that magic in an auditory sense, and that is an uphill battle to begin with. I'll probably give it. I'll watch the first episode, but it'll be more out of morbid curiosity. It's not something that's going to stick with me the way the original series did. I don't think that's even possible for most people.
Yeah, that's what I would plan on. I'd prepare for the worst.
All right, guys, before we move on, I have a $20 super chat here from Shane H. Wilder. He says, I want to believe, but I have issues. Everything has to be race swap. Peacock just released a race swapped reboot of The Burbs. There's a Chris Carter S10 comic before the S10 revival that was phenomenal compared to the show. Yes, I've often heard that it's pretty common that when shows end up having some type of like comic continuation after a series gets canceled, the novelization or comic ends up being every bit as good, if not better, than what ends up getting turned into the revival. So that is true. Another big announcement here, guys, is I was going to wait to do this, but it seems that I can't do that because people are already signing up. We have opened memberships on this channel, which we have never done before. So thank you, Corey Anderson, someone named Olivia Dasovic, I don't know who that could possibly be, and Dingus Khan of Gongolia. Thank you guys for signing up to be members for PCC. That is another great way you can help this channel out. Do not worry. I was already conversing with Jessica today about emojis that are in the works for you guys. And yes, there is going to be a mocha emoji. But the thing is, I'm also going to make sure that there is also a Chloe emoji and a toast emoji so you can support the cat that best fits your personality. So thank you guys. All right, let's move on. Why don't you tell us about what is going on? Oh my gosh, I just got done. Thank you for letting me yap, guys. I feel like I just rambled for like 20 minutes. It was interesting.
No. I mean, it's I feel like now I'm fully prepared for this this X-Files experience.
I do recommend, given the stuff you like to watch, I do recommend going and rewatching it. I bet you would enjoy it upon a rewatch.
So I love my favorite X-Files episode, and then I promise everyone we'll get off this. It was actually done by the guys who ended up making Final Destination. They worked on this episode, and you probably know this trivia, right? The episode was so disturbing that it actually was cut for a while. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The one with the cannibal family?
What's the story behind Home? Because there was some controversy, right? It's about a cannibal family and the sons impregnate the mom and stuff.
That's kind of what it is. Like I don't have all the trivia on that, but I do know that is obviously. So one of the big letdowns when they revived the series is they did an episode in season 10 called Home Again, which had nothing to do with that, but everybody thought it was going to be a continuation of that story.
That would have been such a letdown. Well, it was just obviously a genuinely creepy, disturbing concept, and had some black humor in it too as well, but it was a great episode. So anyway, but
one of the things that I didn't get into was like writing before political correctness kind of engulfed Hollywood. Writers were allowed to kind of just go down blind alleys and try to find something interesting. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. There's an episode that I always reference in here called Gender Bender, where basically it will take over a body and then transform. And there's definitely like this scene like right at the beginning of the episode, just full-on gay panic from this guy who takes this woman at a nightclub out to his car, and then when they're done, she's suddenly a guy, and he's like telling the cops, and like he's like freaking out and stuff. Like, you can't do that now because it would be politically incorrect to do so. And that's not to say, it's not to comment on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. The idea here is that the writers felt unencumbered by societal norms to feel free to write whatever they wanted. Sometimes it worked. I think one of the reasons I point that out is because that episode ostensibly didn't work. It was like they didn't know how to end it. It ended up having to do where like it It's that one or the Red Museum where it just cuts to a crop circle at the end and it doesn't explain anything, which I love. But the point being, guys, that it is what it is. I don't know if the way we approach writing these days kind of lends itself to telling the creative stories that made the Monster of the Week episodes special. So, all right,
Well,
let's move
that's
on.
a great. I want to say also that's a great definition that you just provided of what we mean when we complain about things being too woke. Because I know everyone, including me, we get sick of that word being used so much. But this is exactly what you're describing here. It's basically the way that modern society is repressive toward creativity, and because of these culturally prominent ideas about what you can and cannot say and feel and what's taboo.
Absolutely. All right, you're gonna have to tell everybody what is going on with Kelly Osbourne.
Well, Kelly Osbourne understandably does not appreciate the comments that people have been making online in the wake of her. It's not just her dramatic weight loss, but look, let's just be honest. I was telling my mom about this the other day. I was explaining the concept of Ozempic face to her, because we know someone in real life who is on Ozempic and really didn't need to be anyway, but is on it and is now really, really skinny. But there is a thing, particularly for people who are hitting middle age and older, there is a thing where Ozempic basically like melts away all of your facial fat. And this is not something that happens when people just go through a normal weight loss process, generally speaking. And so what you see with Ozempic face are actual, you don't see it here. Yeah, here we go.
That photo
So
is crazy. Like, I don't
it's
know
not
if
an altered photo.
she's it looks like it's taken on her phone, so it's possible that she's using a filter on there, but it doesn't matter. Like,
No.
unless it's the sunken cheek filter.
This is Ozempic face, and it is more prominent when you're looking up at someone and when the shadows are a certain way and you
Yeah,
don't
like
have
you can-
professional lighting like she has and makeup like she has there.
You can see it here. The lines in her face are unbelievably severe.
And it's the folding of the skin. And, again, like, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but I guess my message to Kelly Osbourne is this. If you are a public figure, and you choose to be, and you continue to choose to be, to put yourself out there, people are going to notice dramatic, and they're going to comment on dramatic shifts in your appearance, particularly when some of those shifts are ghastly. I mean, her appearance now, I'm not talking about that photo you're looking at, but but some of the other more casual ones, it is kind of grotesque looking. I don't know what else to say compared to what she used to look like, and that's fine. She doesn't have to answer to me, but I just think it's a little much. Like, I don't complain about some of the comments that I get about my appearance, negative comments sometimes at times, because that's what I signed up for with this, and I think that she just needs to deal with it and not whine about it, honestly.
I mean, it's the other thing is like, it does. First of all, maybe you should give people like a breakdown. Like, this is what it says down here, where she says, literally can't believe how disgusting some human beings truly are. No one deserves this sort of abuse. And says, looks like this is a comment on there from somebody. It says, looks like a dead body. She's too thin and fragile. Looks like she's going to see her dad soon, with like laughing face emojis,
no.
which is super awful, which is a ridiculously awful thing to say to somebody. But I actually made a point earlier. I just happened to tweet about this. Maybe this was just on the brain, where it was like a tweet where somebody said, like, I get really annoyed when people who don't make music criticize, music. And I was like, look, I host a live podcast 5 days a week. I don't begrudge somebody who's never done this before criticizing this show, because like you said before, that's what I signed up for. She's a public figure. She posts on social media. And unless you want to turn your comments off, which they never do because it limits engagement, which, doesn't give them the dopamine rush that they want. Then you have to subject yourselves to the opinions of others. And does that suck that some people say awful things like this person does? Yes, absolutely. But it's your job as an adult to be able to handle that.
Yes, and also might I say there are some cases where people need a wake-up call, and it might be valuable to Kelly Osbourne to know that she's taking it too far with whatever she's doing. If she cared about her appearance as much as she obviously did to get all kinds of plastic surgery and so forth, then she needs to understand that there's the grotesque face that the public is seeing now in some of these photos. Like maybe it's time to, taper down on the Ozempic or something. I don't know, but like people are going to have reactions. They're going to have reactions when you have a dramatic shift like that in your looks. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's what's craziest about it is she kind of continues to. She says, "This too shall pass," but holy f. And I guess the thing is the other thing is when you look at the initial comments, there's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people defending her. But our brains aren't wired that way.
Right.
Our brains are not wired to focus on all of the nice things that people say to us. Your brain is designed to focus on the one negative thing that somebody says, and oftentimes that's what spurs on people who like to kind of shit talk online, is they know that it gets to you. So the worst thing you can do is acknowledge any of it at all.
Yeah, that's true. I think she probably should not have said anything about this and take a bit of a lesson from it,
I mean, I think the best thing you can do is to starve the attention from the person who has something negative to say. Also, just accept that that's one of the downsides of a public life. Like, people in that space, what they do, at least from everything that I've seen, is they start to daydream about life before all of that and going back to a life without the notoriety, because the bad moments are bad and they do bother them and stuff like that. But only a select few of those actually make a valid attempt to separate themselves from public life and go live a more quiet existence, because one, it's part of their livelihood and they make their living by being a public figure. And two, you start to really, really crave the positive interaction. Therefore, you have a love-hate relationship with the negative interaction that comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, you and I see this in our lives on a much smaller scale, and and the thing that I try to remind myself is that there is a reason why I started doing this social media podcasting stuff, and it's because I was fucking bored. And so when I get and unfulfilled, let's be honest. And so on those occasions when I'm getting criticism that is irritating to me, I remind myself of that. And that's right, she can get off the train at any time. And look, I would love to be able to have Kelly Osbourne's money to mess around with my face like she's been doing. I would love to experiment with all that stuff. And I've got a different chin today and different bone structure and whatever. So I'm hoping that happens one day for me.
How do you do you have like a technique for dealing with the people that say awful stuff to you, or does it just roll off your back? Because I think I saw Mary posted something like the other week where she said people who truly aren't bothered by stuff that's said about them online are either saints or psychopaths, and I'm neither. So I think it's disingenuous of many of them. Now, again, I can only speak from personal experience, so I guess this is anecdotal at best. But I do find it hard to believe that even the most, like, hardened of hearts doesn't get bothered at least a little bit. Now, I do understand and accept that the people who make it the farthest, especially via social media, they've accepted a world where they are going to be consistently misunderstood, if not being outright a bad person. So make whatever judgment you want about Logan and Jake Paul. They've accepted that there's a large portion of the population that hates them, and they've even monetized it in a sense that Jake Paul is like, look, wouldn't you pay a ton of money to watch somebody beat me up? Maybe, like, who might be able to beat me up? And people pay money to watch him hopefully get beat up. It's not a recipe for sincerity. And me and you have had that discussion off air before, that for the most part in this space, it's not a recipe for nuanced positions or vulnerability. You have to appear to be completely snarky. You have to appear to be hard of heart and willing to fight and push back on literally everyone all the time, because the second you show any sense of honesty or vulnerability, you will get attacked. It will be used against you.
Yeah, I find in answer to the earlier question about is there anyone in this game who really it just doesn't ever bother them, I think that for me and for most of us, it's situational. I would say that 95% of the time, maybe more, it really is at the point now where it doesn't bother me. But what happens is there'll be that small percentage of the time where maybe you're in a particular mood, or there is an issue that's been kind of in your life that's been kind of getting at you, or there's something that you feel insecure about that people just happen to put their finger on. And then at those times it really can drive you crazy. What I personally try to remind myself, and this goes for really everything in my life, I remind myself that I'm going to be in the ground in not too many decades, and none of this will matter to me. And one of the things that will be important to me when I'm on my deathbed is to look back and say that I gave my dreams a shot.
Yeah.
And I really think that if you keep that in mind, then that can help you at least move past some of the stuff we're talking about.
So I would recommend, at the very least, don't read comments right when you wake up.
I try not to read comments anymore anyway.
I can't always necessarily escape them, because it's like when I have to create stuff on here, you catch some of it. But I don't, because for the most part, you have to learn to distinguish between like real constructive criticism, which is a good thing, and somebody who just wants to come in and kind of bring down the vibe, which I will always say, and I will defend their right to do this, that as long as that comment section is open, that's their right to do that. And in a way, it's flattering that they take the time to go and make those comments in a lot of ways. So it's a matter of perspective, but that doesn't mean it doesn't bother you when they say something negative or anything like that. You just have to learn to not engage with it unless you know for a fact that you're going to be able to deal with it. And a lot of times I found that I think some people overestimate their ability to deal with it because they get into the back and forth and stuff like that. Oh, but there is one here I do have to acknowledge. Woden Shot in the chat says, Brett is super cool. Let's see if he notices this positive comment. See? I just did. And you know what, Woden Shot? I will take that to heart, and my day is going to be all the better because of it. But I do think that Kelly Osbourne could learn a little bit from the people who have mastered the ability to just not read the comments, because it's not going to benefit her to continue to go back and forth, because all of the people online, you know, that's the rare example of an actual troll. Sometimes somebody will come in and be like, you know what, PCC sucked today, and then they'll give like an actual reason, right? They'll be like, I didn't like this topic. That's not a troll. That's just somebody who didn't like what you talked about. But if you're somebody who just goes in after you find out that it bothers her, that actually is a troll, and the best thing you can do is to not feed them.
Right, agreed.
All right, let's move on and let's talk about Nick Reiner. We have not talked about this story in quite some time, but if you guys remember back in December, that was when Rob and Michelle Reiner were stabbed to death in their home. Their son, Nick Reiner, was arrested not that long after. He's been in jail ever since. He's gone through a bunch of different legal proceedings since then. They had hired Alan Jackson, who is a big-time defense attorney, to represent him. He has since pulled out of that case. He is now being represented by Kimberly Green, who is the deputy public defender. And if you see the public defender, you know, in charge of your case, oftentimes that is just the death knell. But what we are finding out right now, guys, is that Rob Reiner's children have cut off the legal funding of their brother, who is accused of killing their parents. Two of slain Hollywood director Rob Reiner's children have reportedly stopped paying the legal bills for their brother Nick, who is charged with the fatal stabbing of their famous parents in Los Angeles. Romy, 28, and Jake, 34, who were spotted in Los Angeles on Monday, have cut off funding for private defense attorneys for their for their brother, so TMZ stated on Monday. The news site reported that the pair hired high-profile criminal defense attorney Alan Jackson, which I kept thinking was Alan Jackson, the country singer, and he had started a new job, but apparently it's not the same guy. Shortly after cops found the bodies of the When Harry Met Sally director and his wife Michelle in mid-December, but Jackson withdrew from the case soon afterwards due to an undisclosed disagreement. I wonder if now we're just basically finding out that it wasn't a disagreement, unless the disagreement was, you don't have any money to pay me, in which case you're on your own. Last month, a public defender was appointed to take Nick's case, but it was widely perceived as a stopgap measure until a private attorney could be hired, according to the outlet. Kimberly Green, the deputy public defender, was in court on Monday representing Nick, who pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree murder. So he is, contesting this. He's not pleading guilty. I didn't see an insanity plea there or anything, because I think they would normally They would mention that if he was pleading not guilty by way of insanity at the beginning. Nick's defense is Nick's defense. They're not involved, a source told TMZ on Jake and Romy's approach to their brother's upcoming trial. A spokesperson for the public defender's office declined to comment when reached out to by the California Post representatives. For Reiner's siblings, they were not available for comment immediately. Nathan Hochman, the district attorney from LA County, told reporters after the arraignment on Monday that he would not rule out the death penalty for Nick if he's convicted, despite Rob's very public opposition to capital punishment. The crazy thing about that is like there was like a ban on the death penalty in California, like a moratorium on death penalty sentencing for a long time that I think they're trying to pull back on. But the question here is like, does anybody believe that this is anything more than like a publicity case for the prosecution, right? If they go for the death penalty, it's because Nick Reiner is the son of a famous person who was murdered.
Well, I mean, I don't know anything honestly about how the history of the prosecutor's office and the death penalty and which cases they pursue. I would say that I will be amazed to see what kind of defense he comes up with or his lawyers come up with, because I think that they were found, the parents were found pretty quickly after it occurred, and one of them, the mother, was still alive and didn't she tell her daughter and people present that it was her son that had done this?
Oh, I don't know about that. I know that he was found not long after, and there was blood in the hotel room. So
well, I think I'm talking about when the parents were found. So apparently, Rob Reiner had died, but the mother was still conscious or semi-conscious, and the daughter was with her in the ambulance going to the hospital, and she confirmed to the daughter that it was your brother who did this. And so I'm just thinking, like, how on earth? I wonder if they're going to do a kind of a Menendez style defense, which would not be reason of insanity, but they had abused him somehow and he was afraid for his life or whatever. I don't know. I can't imagine what his defense could be for this.
The other thing that came up, guys, was Conan O'Brien kind of spoke out afterwards because they had actually been at a party from a Conan O'Brien party before all of this happened the night before. He says they point out that Nick has suffered from mental health and substance abuse issues for years, is now behind bars awaiting trial. He was denied bail. I don't think that's a shock to anybody, and he wouldn't have been able to pay for that bail anyways. It says to have this is what Conan O'Brien said now, to have that experience of saying good night to somebody and having them leave and then find out the next day that they're gone. I think I was in shock for quite a while afterwards. There was no other word for it. It's so awful. It's just so awful. And I think about how Rob felt about things that are happening in the country, how involved he was, how much he put himself out there, and to have that voice go quiet in an instant is still hard for me to comprehend. Do you think that this is going to end up like, I feel like it's already disappeared, and it's a cynical thing to say, but oftentimes on channels like this, they just stop covering it. Right? Because, nobody cares. I've felt that way with some people talking about Savannah Guthrie. They're like, look, I just don't care.
I never cared. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just not interested in that particular story. But I do think that the nature of these stories is that I hate to say it, but once the exciting or interesting or grotesque part is over, then people do lose interest, unless you have such a highly sensationalized situation like with the OJ trial, where there's like an ongoing soap opera, playing out. But I think the Nick Reiner thing is so open and shut. I get he's going to try to put out a defense, but I think it is so open and shut for most people that there's really nowhere else to go with this story, Does
it feel like the siblings cutting him off is also like there's no way back from that? If people who are part of a potential jury pool here, they're like, look, if your own brother and sister don't believe you, how am I supposed to believe that you're anything but guilty?
Sure. I think they're just terrible optics for Nick all the way around, and deservedly so.
So I feel kind of, it's weird too, because I don't necessarily find these cases inherently fascinating, but I do feel like so much of the discourse these days is about feelings online and awful things that people say. And oddly enough, there's more of a disinterest to real world violence than there is to people who say things. And we're going to get into that later with the BAFTA story, right? Like that story will probably outlive the news cycle longer than Rob Reiner's did.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thesis. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I think that you're looking sort of at two different genres or two different attitudes that people have. One is, of course, the true crime based, this interest in the grotesque and the horrific. But I think what you're talking about, like with the BAFTAs, is almost kind of like we enjoy being sort of catty and making fun of people and laughing and stuff like that, and or oh my god, he said what, kind of like a
Yeah.
gossipy thing. And so I think it's just kind of two different forms of tabloid of tabloid stories there.
What do you think the most what do you think it is that makes women love true crime so much?
I have talked about this before with male friends of mine, and this is what we settled on. And I'm not trying to be sexist or whatever. I know that men are the subjects of violence at times, and this world is dangerous for everyone. But I do think that by virtue, women of our physical differences from men, and the fact that we are from little girls, we are taught to that there is danger, around every corner potentially, and we are inherently sensitive about our own physical vulnerability. I think that we connect more than to crime, because maybe it's something that fear is something that is more part of our experience than it is for men. And so that's one idea that we came to, that
But
maybe.
men, but hasn't it been proven that like men are the overwhelming victims of crime? It's just by other men. So, but it's a fear that's kind of been
Yeah, but
socialized into their life where they don't think about it the same way.
well, right, but that's the thing, is there's a difference between perception and reality.
Mm.
And so I think that's what we're talking about, is like, I guess let me put it this way. If I were to go out in the middle of the night and walk through the ghetto, quote unquote, and then my significant other were to go do that as well, which of us is probably going to have a more heightened sense of vulnerability? I'm not saying he won't have some sense of this is kind of a sketchy situation, but it's just different as a woman. Either that, or women, and could be totally true as well, women have actually maybe a more pronounced dark side in some ways than men do.
What's
I
it
mean,
called?
I often think women have a more developed sense of eroticism. I know men are supposed to be the ones that are just horny all the time, but women actually tend to have, I think, more often dramatic erotic fantasies and things of that nature. So maybe this is something deeper in a Freudian sense in our character. I don't know.
What is it? Hybristophilia? The like the what is it, like the sexual arousal driven by a partner's commission of crime, so like women who are attracted to men who commit crimes.
Well, that gets into the whole, like, Ted Bundy question of like, why do these serial killers have women writing love letters to them and stuff, right?
Well, it's weird because like so this was like a thing that was going on the other day, and me and you have talked about like the gender wars online and what that's like for everybody. But it was one where it was like men will never understand the fear when a guy who's like mumbling gets on the bus and then sits behind you. I was like, no, every response is like, no, I definitely don't want a dude who's mumbling and looks nuts to sit behind me, because
Right,
I don't know,
right.
now he's out of my line of sight and I can't, rightly defend myself if the dude tries to grab me from behind or stuff like that. So I do think that both genders have this kind of dismissal of what it's like to be the other gender most of the time.
Yeah, and I don't like making generalizations like that, but at the same time, I do think, again, probably in our day-to-day perception, if we're talking like levels of feeling a threat, and then you toss in sexuality in there, which I think also is I don't think men are generally have the fear of being sexually assaulted unless they're in certain situations, in prison or something, that women might. So I don't know, but true crime, it just could come down to the fact that women have maybe a darker sense of imagination than men think. I don't know.
All right. All right. Let's go ahead and look at Cute of the Day, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, as always, guys, if you would like to brag about your pets, and I know that you do, because most people who have their dogs, who have their cats, we've had rabbits, we've had some other pets in here. I think there was a llama once. I also appreciate you bragging about your less common pets. And if you want to do that, go ahead and tag me on X. My handle is at Brett Dasovic, and make sure to use the hashtag PCC Pets with a photo of your pet, and we will get it featured on here. Today, we've got this one from Dusty Oracle. He says, this is Heem. He wishes somebody would try to take his mommy blanket. Oh my gosh. He's like, I wish you would.
That's an evil-looking cat.
It's,
Speaking of true crime.
I would say it looks determined. Not evil. We're going to soften it, and we're going to say it looks determined.
I'd be afraid. If that's your cat, you better be locking it outside the bedroom at night.
Okay. All right, guys. Remember, I do want you guys to submit your pets, so please go ahead and do that, guys. Let's talk more about the BAFTAs. So we did discuss yesterday the immediate fallout of the incident in which John Davidson, who is the real-life counterpart to his character in the movie I Swear, was nominated for the lead character, and that was nominated for an award about his battle with Tourette syndrome and the backlash he faces from society for having Tourette syndrome.
Apparently, the battle continues. The battle is continuing.
So the battle continues. He used a slur when Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were on stage delivering an award to someone else. It ignited a huge backlash on all sides. What we've learned after the fact, guys, is that Warner Brothers contacted the BAFTAs right away and requested that that moment be removed. They said that the message was passed on to the BAFTAs, but it aired anyways, and the producers claim that they didn't know it happened until it aired. I don't know a single person on planet Earth who actually believes that, and I guess the question is, irrespective to all your opinions on who should be offended, who is in the right, who is in the wrong, how does this end up on air at all? And the BAFTAs later made a statement issuing, an apology, taking full responsibility for it. But let's go through it here. It says, according to well-positioned sources speaking to Variety, once Tourette's campaigner John Davidson made the involuntary outburst while Sinners stars Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo presented the first award of the night, executives from the studio immediately raised the issue with BAFTA and requested that the incident be removed from the BBC's time-delayed broadcast going on later that night. We're not talking about like a 5-second tape delay here,
right,
ladies and gentlemen. The source also noted the Warner Brothers executives who were in contact with BAFTA throughout Sunday evening and met with them on Monday had been assured that the request had been passed on. However, the broadcast aired with the racial slur not edited out, sparking further outrage and prompting an apology from the BBC, but the BBC's claim that the producers had been unaware what was said until after it had aired has now been called into question following the source's accounting of the proceedings. Many commentators online have also cast doubt over how or why such an incident, which was audible in the ceremony room, would have not been immediately relayed to the producers of the television show. The incident and the handling of it by both the BBC and BAFTA has sparked a firestorm of anger that continues to reverberate. Late Monday, BAFTA put out a statement, and I do have that here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to go down to the bottom here.
Oh, they felt like they had to write a long one, huh?
They point out that somebody pointed out that when this guy got his knighthood or whatever, what's MBE when you get it from the Queen in England? I think that's a knighthood, whatever it is. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. He basically cussed her out as well, and she forgave him. It was relayed to him that she forgave him for his outburst, and he said he felt unbelievably validated by that, and he thanked her gratefully for that here. So this was what they said. We take the duty of care to all our guests very seriously and start from a position of inclusion. We took measures to make sure that those in attendance were aware of the tics, announcing to the audience before the ceremony began and throughout that John was in the room and that they may hear strong language, involuntary noises, or movements during the ceremony. Early in the ceremony, a loud tick in the form of a profoundly offensive term was heard by many in the room. Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were on stage at the time, and we apologize unreservedly to them and to all those that it impacted. We would like to thank Michael and Delroy for their incredible dignity and professionalism. They did handle it well. They seemed to brush it off. They got the job done. They finished what they had to do. They didn't stop. They didn't make it awkward. It was I thought they handled it like pros. During the ceremony, John chose to leave the auditorium and watch the rest of the ceremony from a screen, and we would like to thank him for his dignity and consideration of others on what would have been a night of celebration for him. Remember, his movie, the movie about him, won the award for Best Actor. We take full responsibility for putting our guests in a very difficult situation, and we apologize to all. We will learn from this and keep inclusion at the core of all we do. How are they going to learn from it? Like, if the idea here is that you're going to make more movies about people with Tourette syndrome, Are you just going to then not include? Are they going to have to watch it from a backstage room on a television? Because that's what some people are saying. They're telling them that they should, segregate them, for a lack of a better word, right? So it says, we take full responsibility for putting our guests in a very difficult situation, and we apologize to all. We will learn from this, and we will keep inclusion at the core of all we do, maintaining our belief in film and storytelling as a critical conduit for compassion and empathy. Ironically enough, the backlash online proves how unsuccessful these movies are at actually changing any public discourse, because it did nothing to quell the backlash against this guy, where they ask a guy with disability to apologize for something, knowing that his life is, if he was to do that, would be literally nothing but apologizing 24/7 all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if I should or not, but I just find this whole thing hilarious. And it's not because I find it amusing that the dude was saying the N-word at the BAFTAs, but it is, and I know you talked about this yesterday, but it is just a hilarious, and unlikely battle between two different politically correct causes, right? And so, and also, I have to say, like, the bureaucratic snafu here, or whatever occurred, where the chain of communication broke down, and this was not relayed to the right person, or someone dropped the ball.
I don't buy it for 1 second. I think it was intentional. I think they left.
Oh, you think it was for like ratings or what?
I can't buy. Look, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. But I refuse to believe that, like, one of the things that people complain about when it comes to these big networks is bloat and redundancy. There should be redundancies in place. They cut out the Free Palestine quote that an artist gave. You're telling me that they were able to catch that quick sound clip and delete it, but they didn't delete this? I don't buy that, not for a second. And nobody with a rational brain believes that this was somehow just missed.
So you think they were trying to generate this controversy then, or get?
I think that they didn't care enough to remove it, probably because they know that it's going to generate buzz. When does anybody talk about the BAFTAs otherwise? Nobody cares about the BAFTAs. People don't even care about actual, quasi-important American award shows like the Oscars or the Grammys or anything like that. Every year, it's no longer about whether the right artist won, which is what would have passed for controversy back in the day. Did Leonardo DiCaprio finally win his Oscar? Now it has to be Billie Eilish getting on stage and saying, nobody's illegal on stolen land.
Well, I have to say, though, even back in the day, the Academy Awards, Marlon Brando had a Native American accept his award in protest. But I look, I mean, this is just such a huge mistake here, this day and age. And I just can't imagine. I guess you could be right. It could be a really shrewd PR move for ratings or for attention. But it's hard for me to believe this was intentional. So that's interesting that you think that. I just tend to think that, having seen a lot of bureaucratic BS and incompetence over my lifetime, I just think that this was just, however unbelievable, this was just really bad incompetence here. But
I've also got the quote here from John Davidson, who did address it here, because remember, people came and started asking him for an apology, and that's just his life, right? He says something offensive. Now he has to spend his life apologizing. And as people were pointing out online, they're like, you wouldn't ask a blind person to apologize for bumping into you on the side of the road. Says, I wanted to thank BAFTA and everyone involved in the awards last night for their support and understanding in inviting me to attend the broadcast. I appreciate the announcement to the auditorium in advance of the recording, warning everyone that my tics are involuntary and not a reflection of my personal beliefs. I was heartened by the round of applause that followed the announcement and felt welcome and understood in an environment that would normally make it impossible for me. They also get into bringing up, hold on, he says, he concluded the statement by saying, I swear is more than a film or TV documentary, and explains the origins, condition, and traits and manifestations of Tourette syndrome. I've spent my life trying to support and empower the Tourette's community and to teach empathy, kindness, and understanding from others, and I will continue to do so. I chose to leave the auditorium early in the ceremony as I was aware of the distress my tics were causing. And he basically points out, he's like, look, I know that this is what's happening. And people want a specific apology. They want them to say the right thing. But first of all, I don't think that there is such a thing as the right thing to say. At least if the idea here is to get actual public support, there might be the right thing if he's to say it in private to Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, if that's what he feels he needs to do. But saying it to the public, it doesn't absolve him because it will never be enough. It will never actually satiate the entirety of the mob. They will always find something else to be upset about when it comes to something like this.
I don't know much about Tourette's. What is the reason why do their outbursts tend to focus on offensive words and content as opposed to just saying broccoli or something?
It's literally hardwired into the brain that has to be what is the most socially unacceptable thing that you could say. It's a condition called coprolalia that literally it's an involuntary tic.
Wow.
And like you said, when he told the head of the BAFTAs, or the woman who was the head of the BAFTAs earlier, to shut the fuck up. And that the show was boring, right? So he didn't do this to just one person, right? And you're asking a lot of this guy who deals with the condition every day to apologize for something when the whole point of the movie was to raise awareness and understanding for what he is going through.
Well, I guess the positive silver lining for him is that now way more people will hear about him and his movie and probably see it than they would otherwise. So I guess it's a win-win for everyone. I mean, you say that, Michael Jordan and Delroy Lindo get props for handling it as they did. And so I guess the only people who turn out to look bad in this are whoever let this thing slip through the cracks.
So there is some comments about this. So there was an article from Metro, dubious to prove at best because it's independent sources. So who knows how much of this is actually real or not. So take it with a grain of salt. It says, as the pair prepared to hand out the award for best visual effects to Avatar, Fire and Ash, Tourette's campaigner John Davidson was heard shouting the N-word, which prompted gasps from the audience in London's Royal Festival Hall. Following the incident, the BBC removed the entire awards ceremony broadcast from iPlayer after facing backlash for not cutting the moment, despite it removing a director's plea to free Palestine elsewhere in the broadcast. Another reason why, I don't buy that they caught that one but didn't catch the other, which was obviously an even bigger deal. Soon after, Lindo told Vanity Fair that he and Jordan did what they had to do while presenting, but he also wished someone from BAFTA spoke to us afterwards. Like you said, is this some type of bureaucratic oversight that they just didn't think it mattered to go and have a word with them? That's beyond the idea of asking the guy with Tourette's to apologize to you. It's you as the organizer of the event who's like, look, we put a gentleman with Tourette's in the front row. Maybe they will be understanding of his disability. Maybe they won't. But speaking purely from a political or from a corporate redundancy perspective, you go and do it anyways because actors can be capricious and you don't know how they're going to respond anyways. Now it goes on. It says, however, a source has now told Metro that Jordan, who's age 39, was left repulsed by the outburst. Again, these are independent, unverifiable sources. Michael B. Jordan had to do extensive research into the horrific psychological effects of racism to prepare for Sinners, so he was disgusted and repulsed and grossed out by John's outburst, they told us. Coogler's horror film Sinners is set in 1932 Mississippi Delta and stars Jordan in dual roles as criminal identical twin brothers. And then another quote here. It says, he read works by savants like, is it Joy DeGruy? Joy DeGruy Leary to prepare for the role, so the incident really reminded him about how much work has been done to drive racism underground. He was having a difficult day already after finding out about an upsetting incident in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area recently, so this just made it worse, but he is having a great year and won't let this stop him. He is focused on his next movie, The Thomas Crown Affair. However, after watching the event unfold, the actor's parents were left shaken. His mom and dad broke down in tears with what they saw happen, and Delroy had been a horrible 48 hours for the family, they explained. Michael's community in Newark was part of the Great Migration, which literally happened because black people were being terrorized in the South. Seeing Michael and Delroy being called that word up on stage really hurt their loved ones, and so everyone is trying their best to support each other. He postponed some plans in London to spend time with his parents as he recovers.
Well, I mean, I think that all that is excessive, but I will say that I can look, people do have a basic human reaction to someone screaming epithets at them. And while all that stuff that you just read seems over the top, but I will say that I could totally see how a black man or black men or their families hearing this guy, having this guy screaming this epithet, which we know it does carry much more of a charge than even if someone were to scream bitch or something at me, right? It carries the charge. We can say, well, it's in rap music. Okay, fine. But it still has a charge to it. And so to me, it actually is understandable that it would have bothered them or felt offensive. I'm not saying that they need to demand an apology from the Tourette's dude or whatever. It's just an unfortunate situation all the way around. And I get why that would have felt offensive. Now, I just want to say, you mentioned Avatar. I wish that he would have screamed Avatar sucks or Avatar is bullshit or something.
James
that would have been
Cameron's
nice.
wasting his life.
Yes.
Look, here's the thing though. And I think that this is true for everybody, no matter what your skin color is. When you allow that much power, when you allow a word that much power or a phrase that much power, whatever that might be, whatever the cultural history of it is, you're surrendering a lot of your personal agency to someone else, and it makes life a whole lot harder to live if you have to live in fear of instances like that happening. That's not to disregard what happened to them, but I think most grown adults these days understand that the world is difficult and arduous as it is, and we owe it to ourselves to develop skin thick enough to deal with whatever comes our way, especially if what we're looking at is words. And I'm just trying to be respectful to all parties involved. But as a grown man who's built a multi-million-dollar empire in Hollywood, I have no doubt that he is going to be fine and that he will end up figuring all of this out for himself. And I just think for the average everyday person, they have a hard time. And you could make the argument, if you're on that side of the debate, to say that you can't understand what it is. But to the average everyday person, having your life drawn to a halt because of words that upset you, it's just alien to the average everyday person who has so much more that they deal with in life.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that this should have been something that they both quickly moved on from. I can see it being really fucking irritating at the time. But all of this, oh, he has to go home and be with his family now, and he has to assess the situation and all that. I mean, that sounds just like a lot of BS.
It reminds me of it's not a fair comparison entirely. I've referenced this clip on the show tons of times. Some videos just stick in your brain. They do. And there was this video that Clownfish TV did after Terminator Dark Fate bombed, where the director of the movie, somebody in the chat, let me know who it was. It was the same guy who directed the first Deadpool movie, right? What was that guy's name? Anyways, after Terminator Dark Fate bombed, he did like an interview where he talked about the trauma of the people not liking his movie. And they just couldn't help but laugh. They're like, you're a Hollywood director. It's not traumatic for people to say that your movie fucking blows. It's just not.
Yeah, that's definitely not the word that I would use. I mean, I think it's reasonable to say
Tim Miller,
I poured my heart and soul into this movie, and it sucks and it was hurtful that it wasn't well received. But I think there needs to be a pretty high bar for what we term traumatic and trauma. And
I wonder what people have people have made plenty of comments that that are rude to me on here, and such is life. You move on with it. It sucks. However, if somebody wants to use a slur for Polish people on me specifically, I can't condone that you use it on other people. But if you want to call me a slur for Polish people, have at it. Doesn't bother me. Okay. All right. Why don't you tell us what the hell is going on with Yoan Gruffudd? Because that's apparently how you pronounce his last name.
I guess it's because it's Welsh.
Yes,
that's
he is Welsh.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so he basically has the crazy ex from hell, and she has set out to outdo Amber Heard if possible. And these are actually her own words. Apparently, she threatened him. This is part of the reason they're going to court this week. She threatened him, saying that she was going to basically Amber Heard him, is what she said. But look, he left her. She claims for another woman that he's now married to and is having children with, and I don't know the truth on that, and neither is anybody else. But divorce happens, and I could have understood. And her name's Alice Evans, by the way, the ex that he's going to court facing off against. I could have understood her having a season of being really pissed and maybe mouthing off a bit online about it. But she basically, over the past year and a half or so, has waged a scorched earth campaign against him and against his wife, and has really seemed to have tried to alienate her children against him. And so, and also she claims that he owes her more money and more child support and that sort of thing, even though if you look into the court documents, it seems like he has paid every bit that he owes her and more. So yeah, they are in court. She had a restraining order against her for a while.
He had
and
one
then
against her, right?
he had, yeah, he
Yeah.
had one against her, and she violated the restraining order, and she had to go to court for that. And so it has been a long-running saga, and she has given multiple interviews about this, about how horrible it is, and she's constantly
This
talking
article
about
gets
it.
crazier the more
Yeah, you want to
read
read
it.
some
Yeah.
of it? Go for
So
it.
it says, as Evans sat in the Los Angeles courtroom, scrolling through phone texts and whispering with her attorney, Griffith again. I have such a hard time saying Griffith, but apparently that's how it's pronounced. If I'm wrong, guys, I apologize. But I at least did take the time before the episode today to like go on YouTube and be like, pronunciation.
It's Welsh. You're probably
Yes.
you're probably right.
It says, so recounting incidences of harassment and abuse in which he said that she, and then it lists these things that he says that she did, threatened to destroy him and his career by Amber hurting him, hired a private detective to follow his new wife, Bianca Wallace, threatened him with physical violence, falsely claimed that he had been cheating with Wallace for 3 years before his marriage to her, threatened to accuse Wallace of a false crime so that she would be deported. So she's like the world's biggest supporter of ICE, I guess. And also, he mentions at the top that she accused him of like child abuse.
Yeah, some people are comparing her to Betty Broderick. This was a case, you probably haven't heard of this, but this was a case in the 90s where a scorned ex-wife shot in cold blood, her husband and ex-husband and his new wife. And this became, and she actually, she got a hung jury the first time round. She was eventually tried and convicted and is in prison now. But the first time round, she got a hung jury because she managed to convince some of them that she was justified by the trauma that the divorce put her through, and that women who have been abandoned in midlife by their spouses, it makes them crazy, and therefore they're basically justified in killing those spouses. So some people have been saying that that Alice Evans, while she hasn't committed overt violence, she could potentially be on that level.
Yeah.
If you look at some of her interviews and her public pronouncements online, she certainly seems unhinged. Many of her own supporters have urged her to cut it out, that she's making herself look worse and worse with her behavior. But it is definitely a crazy saga, and yeah, there's a trial this week to, I guess, try to settle some of the disputes between them.
Here's more of what it says. It says, on social media, he said, quote, she accused me of being a child. I don't know if I'm even allowed to use that word on here. A PDF file and a drug addict. She said I was out of my mind on sex, drugs, and millennials.
The wife, the new wife.
That sounds like
is
a
millennial.
movie. That sounds like a movie that I would hate. Sex, drugs, and millennials. That's what he says. I was terrified by what that would do to my image and my career. I felt saddened and frustrated and helpless. It threatened my relationship with my children. I was very upset because I've been very generous in my support for the children and for Alice. Griffith, he accused Evans, who showed little emotion in a navy blue and white striped blouse. That's the thing about Daily Mail. They always go into like vivid detail about what people are wearing at these things. Says he accused her of creating a false narrative aimed at hurting his acting prospects. He added, I was terrified. Boy, what would this do to my image and my career? I felt saddened and frustrated and helpless. It threatened my relationship with my children. I was very upset because I had been very generous in my support for the children and for Alice. He told the court that Evan's bitterness toward him after their split was so serious that she abandoned any idea of a settlement and instead insisted that they sell their family home so that she would have the funds to litigate him, to sue him. So she wanted him to sell their home so that she could, I guess, get half and that she could sue him, which is absolute crazy pants. Says, she told me there was no going back now. I was devastated. I was scared. I was nervous. She was threatening my career and my future. How was I going to provide for my children? He said that he was terrified when Evans sent him a video that contained a threat of physical violence. He told the courts that Evans' vitriol was also aimed at Wallace. Alice revealed to me that she had a private detective on Bianca. He told the court added that Evans made up a false story about Gruffudd cheating on her for 3 years before he filed for divorce. Evans appeared on a TV talk show in which she told the same cheating false narrative, and she was crying on the program, which was all an act, he said. I know she was acting because when the show ended, she texted me and said, "How's it going? Want more?" Like, she sounds like a supervillain.
Yeah.
Like the female story version of a supervillain.
Well, that seems to be the general consensus. And for those of us who have followed her public pronouncements for a while now, she definitely seems unhinged. And of course, I have to say, what makes a public perception more difficult for her also is that Gruffudd's new wife is a multiple sclerosis activist because she is afflicted with MS. And so she's a very sympathetic character in her own right, and she regularly posts on Instagram about, oh, the pain was so bad today I had to go to the hospital, and oh, here I am walking with my cane today because I can barely walk and stuff, and she seems like really the opposite of Alice Evans in terms of temperament. Really comes across very sweet and everything. And so I just think Alice needs to realize that she's definitely losing the PR battle with all of this.
Says, I was very disturbed that she would go to these lengths to denigrate me in the way she was describing Bianca. I felt helpless. I was anxious that she would use my public image to create a scandal bigger than Brad and Angelina. Well, that's just, that's just self-aggrandizing.
That's pretentious.
Right there. You're not going to be bigger than Brad and Angelina, let's face it. I found that to be incredibly threatening. He said in one text, Evans said that she was going to create a false crime that Bianca perpetrated and she would be deported. In another, he said she told him that he didn't have a clue how to bring up children and threatened to call the police if he showed up to see his daughters. On one occasion, when he dropped off his daughters after a scheduled visit, Alice began loudly berating and threatening and accusing me. She said she was going to destroy me and she was going to Amber Heard me. Then she said to the girls, quote, "If daddy is ever weird or creepy with you in a physical way, please let me know."
No.
Then she started screaming and yelling obscenities at the top of her lungs. She was so aggressive, out of control. It was very upsetting and disturbing. Now, here's the thing. I will try to give the other side of the argument where it's getting to the extent here where it's like so over the top. It reminds me of the crazy girl in the early seasons of the show Luther, which ironically enough, I think her name was Alice too. That lady was crazy. This lady seems crazy too. And sometimes when it seems a little bit too much, sometimes I wonder if there's some embellishment there. I can't say whether that's true or not. I just have a bullshit detector that's at least tuned to question whether it just seems a little bit too over the top. I don't know if that's the case here, but it's like it all combines together to be absolute craziness.
Well, that's definitely the case. And I think whatever the truth may be, that Yoan has been very good at and his wife have been very good at projecting a very low-key, sweet image. And Alice has just obviously had no interest in media in any way toning down her presentation. Let's put it that way.
It's
so
craziness.
Definitely digging her own grave in a number of ways. And look, there are legitimate feelings that people feel when they are scorned, so to speak, or when they are traded in for someone new. Now, he claims that that he was not cheating on her, and I guess maybe he has some evidence to back that up. I don't know, but I think that everybody cuts people slack when they are divorcing for some outburst and negative feelings. But what I have seen is that she's really destroying her own image with this. It's gotten out of control. And when you have restraining orders against you and she's trying to alienate the kids, one of the other things, by the way, that Gruffudd has alleged is that on one of the visits with his children, the children were over at his house visiting, the oldest basically physically assaulted his wife and threw a bowl of cereal at her. And what Gruffudd was basically saying is that this kind of behavior has been precipitated by Alice telling the kids, "Oh, Daddy doesn't love you anymore, and he just wants to fuck
Yeah.
his new wife," and all all that stuff, right?
It's just the way in which Hollywood relationships fall apart makes me wish to never ever have to be in that level of spotlight. And it's not like he's a big A-list actor. I mean, he was in the Fantastic Four. And like I said, if you never saw the show Forever, which I don't even think, it's not even on a streaming service, you have to like buy it from Amazon Prime. It was, or ad-free Tubi, if you have ad-free Tubi. It was great, and he's a great actor, but he's not like an A-list actor, and still his life is like he says, he points out, there's a very real fear that when you're in the public, when you're in the public eye, that can be used against you as a weapon by somebody who wants to bring you down.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. All right. You're going to have to give everybody like a refresher course. I don't know. I think we might have talked about Apple Martin before at some point, but I'm not 110% sure. But it is the daughter of, what is it? The dude from Coldplay and Gwyneth Paltrow?
Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow.
All right.
Yeah.
She's apparently a mean girl.
Well, so there have been for the past several years rumors, very, very common online, and I'm not sure if they're well-founded or not, that she got kicked out of a school. I think it was a private high school, that she had gotten kicked out or suspended for being part of a tribe of bullies, and that so basically she had been kicked out or suspended for bullying some other students. Now, I don't know, again, if this is true or not. This was kind of the rap on her, but what I find interesting is that she, like, I guess many celebrities, she will regularly go on social media and Instagram to try to convince people that she has not had any cosmetic procedures done. And and the latest attempt was several days ago. She put out a video explaining her lip lining technique, and she says, "Oh, everyone thinks that I've had some kind of lip augmentation. I've had like lip filler or lip implants." And she's like, "No, in reality, I just know how to do my makeup in a certain way to make my lips look fuller." And so then, of course, she demonstrated the age-old technique of lining, outside your lip and filling it in. But here's the thing people are calling her out for, and I totally agree with this. If you look at pictures, go back to the one there. You will see a telltale sign of, I should say, overdone, poorly done lip procedures, which is when there is so much filler on the top lip. There's so much filler, or the implants are so big that you actually have then a kind of a cleft created in the lip, because the lip just cannot, there's not the skin there at that point. It hasn't been stretched out enough like Kylie Jenner's. There's not the skin there to accommodate all of that filler or that augmentation. And so I just wonder where Gwyneth is, honestly, because if I had a daughter and this daughter had obvious lip augmentation to the point where it looked like a deformity, and this daughter is repeatedly going online trying to gaslight the public into thinking that this is just the result of a lip lining technique. I would be really embarrassed for that daughter. And if I were Gwyneth, what I would say is, first of all, sweetheart, I know you want big lips, but we got to take this slow, because you're looking pretty freaky there in the top lip with that weird cleft. And then secondly, you are making yourself look bad when everyone can see, plain as day, Emperor has no clothes, that there's something weird going on with your mouth, especially when you used to have really thin lips. I don't understand like the disconnect that occurs with these celebrities. It reminds me of Zac Efron, when he got all of that, and people can look it up themselves, when he got all of that extensive plastic surgery and basically took his boyish good looks and tried to transform them into a really rugged masculine face with a huge jawline. And then, of course, people noticed it and said, "What the hell is going on?" And do you remember what his excuse was? He said that he was running in his house and he slipped and he fell into the table, and the table knocked his jaw off. And when his jaw was reset, his mandibles just grew really big. Give me a break. Just say I got some surgery. I don't know what the deal is.
His face kind of like, he's kind of like fixed it since then, right?
Well, if he has any sense, he fixed it. He tried to fix it.
So, tell everybody like what the story was with her apparently being a mean girl, because that, like, she had to like deny this. First of all, I'm watching Scream Queens right now. I would expect nothing less from the Nepo daughter of Gwyneth Paltrow, who's one of the most out of touch and awesome celebrities there is, because she doesn't pretend to be like a normal everyday person, which I respect. I wouldn't want the daughter of Gwyneth Paltrow to be like, I'm just like you guys. Like, I want her to be snooty, inaccessible, and rude. That's how she should be.
Well, I mean, she definitely she's trying to lean away from that online, trying to convince everyone that she's not a mean girl and that these were just unfounded rumors and this is an unfounded perception of her. And again, like I don't know if these rumors are true. I know you see them about her getting suspended or kicked out. I know you see them like all over the place. She must get sick of it because like every video that I see with her, like on Instagram, there are usually comments to that effect. I think, look, as we talked about before, for every privilege in life or for every blessing, there is a downside. And I think she just has to come to terms with the fact that the downside of having a really famous, wealthy set of parents and the downside of, you know, being able to have millions of Instagram followers and all that is also that people are going to talk some shit about you. And especially if you're Gwyneth Paltrow's kid, they're going to assume that you are probably a snooty mean girl.
Yeah.
So.
It says in 2024, Apple Martin made her big debut as the all-grown-up daughter of Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin at this event. Shortly after footage of the evening surfaced, a bunch of commentators accused Martin of bullying based on two videos, one where Martin supposedly stole the spotlight from a fellow Deb's photo shoot, I remember that, and another where she rolled her eyes at her date, Count Leo Henkel von Donnersmarck. That's not a real name.
Look, I mean, can I just say, first of all,
look, if we're going to bully people for their heritage, we need to bully this guy first, okay?
Well, look, we have to talk to about this. This was what I wanted to get into also. This Parisian debutante ball that is basically an excuse for wealthy and famous people to go to Paris and to see their kids dress up and be really cute in these designer ballroom outfits, right? And so I remember, for instance, Demi Moore, all of her kids with Bruce Willis, they took part in this Parisian debutante ball. And so again, like if you're gonna be at an event like this and your date is Count Leo von Hammersmark and all that, I mean, people are going to make assumptions about you. And I those videos, I mean, look, it could have been taken out of context or people could have been, you know, unfair to her or whatever. But again, like you got to be on your best behavior. If you're Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter and this is your status in life, you got to understand that people are going to assume this anyway. You got to be on your best behavior. You can't be making fun of people or rolling your eyes or whatever.
I'm telling you right now, like if she didn't bully this guy, then she's not doing her job as a bully. If she didn't call him like Von Hammer's douche or something like that, she's not doing her job. She was specifically accused of having mean girl vibes following an unsubstantiated rumor that Martin had been expelled from school for bullying. Well, more than a year later, Martin is shutting down those rumors. In a comment reshared to her Instagram stories, the 21-year-old posted a quick message from myself. Hi. I didn't want to respond, but this narrative is completely false and has gotten so out of hand, she wrote, seemingly responding to a blocked-out post. I have never been expelled from any school, especially not for bullying anyone. She went on to say that she totally understands people not liking me, and she welcomes everyone to share their opinions online. I like this girl more and more. She's, like I said, somebody asked, like, why, like, what's funny about Gwyneth Paltrow? I get a kick out of it. Like, I get a kick out of the fact that she's completely detached from the average everyday person, because I'm sick of celebrities pretending to think that they're just like you or I. Okay?
Well,
we just did videos yesterday. We just did videos yesterday about celebrities doing GoFundMes. Like, if Gwyneth Paltrow did a GoFundMe, that would be insane, because she's a billionaire. So, you know what? Her derision of everybody else, you just can't take it seriously. You have to just look at her as old and out of touch, and her kids are a product of that. Continue.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to put out a candle that is purportedly scented like your vagina, you're just laying yourself out there for public derision. Like you just can't, you know, again, they're living in a cuckoo world if they think that they can do these things. And they're like with Kelly Osbourne, there's not going to be some interest in this. But you mentioned the GoFundMe, you know, I wasn't here when you were talking about that, But I think that it would surprise a lot of people, or maybe it wouldn't, that so you can be really wealthy and you can still spend beyond your means and you can still be broke. And so people will say, "Oh, well, they were Rebecca Gayheart and Eric Dane, they were successful actors and they over the course of their lifetimes, they would have made millions of dollars." And it's like, "Yeah, but what people need to understand is generally speaking, when people level up their status, they don't keep their spending habits as
Yeah.
they were." And so, it's like people, it's like, okay, you might make 40,000 a year and I'm broke. Well, it's also possible to make 4 million a year and be broke. It is. I'm not justifying it, but I'm saying that to me, it's really not a mystery that Eric Dane didn't have much money at the end of his life. And then you add in medical bills and things like that. But to me, I'm not, and again, I'm not saying that people should give to that GoFundMe. As I understand it, the GoFundMe was set up mostly so their wealthy celebrity friends could help them out. But
Yeah.
anyway, but again, to me, it's one of the common foibles of human nature that many people share is not saving enough money for a rainy day.
Yeah, but I guess the people who look at the cost of living now, they're like, once you've exceeded that cost of living, it's incumbent upon you to save. And they just hold them to a different standard than they would hold the average everyday person.
Well,
whether that's right or wrong.
Well, you would think that, but then everybody remind yourself what typically happens when common people win the lottery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When regular people win the lottery because they're not somebody who built the wealth on their own, they don't know how to hold on to it. Completely understandable. She goes on as she continues defending herself from the bullying allegations. But the bullying rumor, she said, is completely untrue. I am not that type of person, and anybody who is close to me knows that. Look, it's funnier if she is a bully. She's young. She can grow out of it later and go on her redemption arc. Maybe I'm just feeling that way because I'm watching Scream Queens, and it's like Emma Roberts was born to play the role of Chanel Oberlin, just the worst human being you've ever. Maybe that's what I like about Gwyneth Paltrow. Is like she's like a softer version of a Chanel Oberlin. She's nothing like you or I. She's completely over the top, and that's okay.
Well, you mentioned Emma Roberts. You know the rap on her from years ago, right? She assaulted Evan Peters when they were dating. She assaulted him in a hotel room, scratched him, beat him so badly the cops were called and they arrested her. She spent a night in jail. So she is a mean gal.
She's a mean gal. There,
Yep.
Perfect. See, mean girl. Perfect.
Speaking of Amber Heard, yep.
Makes perfect sense.
I did a video on it. You can look at my channel.
How long ago was that?
It was many years ago, but there is footage, and again, I have this video. If you look it up on my channel, there's footage of her coming out to meet Evan after she was released from the night in jail, and she starts the tears because women know how to manipulate, right? And so she immediately, he's the one who should have been pissed and was owed an apology and should have been upset, right? Because she physically assaulted him. But immediately she lays on the tears and he's there having to comfort her. He's like, "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay that you scratched the daylights out of me."
There you go. All right, guys, let's go to the super chats. Let's get to them here. We are very close to a crisis party. Let's get to that, guys. Let's get to a second one. Come on. That's asking a lot here. All right, guys. From Shane H. Wilder. Happy Tuesday, Kurtz and Dasovic, and happy second anniversary to the Willy Wonka experience and its titular villain, the Unknown. It doesn't feel like that was 2 years ago. The world's worst fan experience. Do you remember that, Kurtz? The Willy Wonka event that was like it was like nothing there. It was like in the UK.
No.
Look it up.
No.
Look up the Willy Wonka experience. You'll get a kick
All right,
out
I
of
will
it.
look that up and after the show.
All right. Burned Oils says Brett wishes he had Tourette's so that he could curse. I mean, I can curse. It's not really like it makes it like more socially acceptable to curse. I guess the idea is that it's more acceptable or you will be forgiven for saying slurs because you couldn't help it. Does anybody remember, by the way, House reference incoming? So, reset the clock and take a drink if you must. But there's an episode where House is treating a patient with autism, severe autism. And basically all of the other cast members, everybody else that surrounds and works with House, spends the entire episode pondering whether he has Asperger's because he ignores social convention, and they list all of these reasons why they think it's possible House might be somebody that's got Asperger's syndrome. And then at the end, Cuddy says very succinctly, it's much simpler than that. He's a jerk. that's what it is. And you can say mean things to people too. You don't need Tourette's. It's just going to mean that people are going to think you're a jerk. So you have to make that judgment for yourself.
By the way, here I found the image.
Yeah.
There we go. It's kind of hard to see. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's.
She's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Notice how he has to comfort her there after she attacked him. Anyway.
He's like, I'd give you a bigger hug, but you scratched the side of my face, and now it hurts.
And I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just it's absurd. But it is, like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard showed us. There are a lot of men who are being physically abused by women, and they can't fight back because they know that as soon as they hit the woman away, it's gonna be like, oh my God, he gave me a black eye.
It's rough. All right, let's continue here. Sean says, going to try to get my question in before Kurtz leaves this time. Has she ever been in a bar fight?
Oh Lord, no! I would not fare well in any kind of fight. Unfortunately,
I'd
like
guns right now, though. You're looking
well, I don't have the technique though. Let's put it that way. I was so terrible at sports growing up. I was one of those who hated PE time because someone would throw a ball right at me and I'd like miss it and stuff. So I can only imagine that if I ever did get into a physical fight, I would go down very fast.
Not so you weren't. Do you enjoy watching any sports or not? Just none at all.
I like football. I don't follow it until the playoffs and the stakes get more serious. And I don't have like teams or I don't do fantasy football or whatever. But I like football. And sometimes I'll watch a little tennis or a little Olympics, although I missed the Olympics this time round. So anyway, but yeah, never been a huge sports person. But I wish, like, if I in an alternate universe, if I had children, I would want them to do sports because I think that it really does build a kind of a self-sufficiency, and also it can put you in touch with your aggressive self, which sometimes in life you do need.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, there was like a thread the other day where what was it? Matt Walsh was talking about how people on the right denigrate sports ball, and that's also pretty prevalent in like art circles and stuff, right? They kind of dismiss people's love of sports. But I always pointed out when I was talking about, I said sports are like an apolitical access point for your local community. Like, and I was just like, look, if I had a friend who wanted to like do a fantasy Senate roster of like 50 senators or 100 senators, I would say they're weird and get away from me. That's fucking weird. But most people, they bond over local sports with their friends, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I played sports growing up, and I think it's especially, I mean, maybe this is sexist, but especially for men, I think that it's important to at least try your hand at sports when you're young, because it teaches you a lot of valuable lessons, whether it's the ability to work in a team, which is extremely important, perseverance, dedication, and pushing through when things get difficult. Those are things that kind of come more fundamentally to the process of growing within sports. You have to learn those things too. Like if you want to get a higher education, if you want to go to college and you have to really be focused on what you're doing, that's a different type of dedication. It's the same, but it's different. So I do think for men, they benefit from taking on sports.
Yeah, and I would actually say the same for women too. I agree with you there.
Chief Corey Anderson says, I hate Canada. Well, that's understandable.
I've never been.
We spent our honeymoon in Canada, and people were like, why? I had a good time, especially at Niagara Falls. I really enjoyed it.
It's a huge country, and it's a beautiful landscape, and I don't have anything against Canadians either. I mean, it does seem like their culture is detrimentally more left wing than ours, but I don't have anything against it.
Yeah. Corey Anderson says, watching X-Files with no lights on. I don't even know what that says after that. He says, I hope the smoking man's in this one. When they sing about your show and character, you have something special. The new one will suck. Okay. Oh, so he's saying that was from a song. Okay. Oh, I do know what song you're talking about there. My gosh, I'm gonna have to. I haven't heard. What is that from? Corey Anderson, let me know before. Obviously, I remember the lyrics, but I don't remember the song. Was that? I've got it on fan funding right now, so I cannot see any things. But was that Bare Naked Ladies? Somebody tell me if you're looking at the chat. Let me know if it was Bare Naked Ladies. Corey Anderson says Kelly Osbourne looks like Joan Rivers if Joan was an old crusty puppet.
Yeah, and again, it's the thing, the specific thing, the side effect that Ozempic has, where you just lose so much facial fat, more than you would lose if you were just doing normal weight loss. And the thing that people forget about is that one of the primary markers of youthfulness, I'm so interested in skincare and stuff, but one of the primary markers of youthfulness is the amount of facial fat. And so
that's why I look so young, because I'm fat.
That's actually well, I was actually going to agree with you, not saying you're fat overall, but seriously, if you have a little more flesh in the face. And that's why when women start getting cosmetic procedures done, a lot of the time what they're doing, whether it's filler or injecting facial fat, is they are trying to plump things up. And so I just don't understand. I wonder if Kelly has, I think some of the people on Ozempic are developing eating disorders because they've battled obesity or being plump their whole lives, and finally they get to experience what they've been dreaming about, which is being thin, but it goes too far, and then they look at themselves and they focus only on, oh my God, I look so svelte and thin, and not, oh my God, my face is melting off. So
don't hear the word svelte very often.
Svelte, but their face is melting. So Kelly, your face is melting. It's time to taper off, I think, the Ozempic, microdose. Ozempic.
Corey Anderson says Brett and Mary need pop filters. I don't know what that is. Oh, microphone pop filter? Yeah. Woden Shot says never feed the trolls, you two. Stay strong. And then he gives owl emoji, arrow emoji, bullseye emoji. Woden Shot right on the money. Corey Anderson says anyone upset about what happened at the BAFTAs has a micro Johnson. I don't remember the last time I heard that part of the anatomy referred to as a Johnson, but thank you for that. All right. Red Snow says, Brett conspiracy guy Dasovic. I will not believe. Maybe. My conspiracy is that the X-Files reboot will do well.
Well, it could be. I mean, I'm always hopeful when these things are rebooted. I was disappointed. You were talking about Hulu. I was disappointed several months ago by the Hand That Rocks the Cradle redo. That's a classic thriller that I love from the 90s. Rebecca De Mornay plays a psycho nanny, and she's got a beef with this woman because the woman so Rebecca De Mornay is married to a gynecologist, and the gynecologist is brought down by one of his patients because he was actually molesting her in the office. Well, he shoots himself rather than face the consequences. So Rebecca De Mornay is left bereft of her husband, and she blames the woman who reported him. So she sets out to become her nanny and undermine her and her relationship with her husband and child. It's a great thriller, but of course, Hulu remakes it. And instead of the themes of the last one, it becomes all about lesbian themes, because now it's about this unfulfilled woman who has these bisexual desires that she can't express in her marriage with her husband. And this other woman comes in. It's like, okay, of course we have to turn it into like a woke LGBTQ thing, but whatever.
Yep. Hulu in general, I love Hulu for their deep catalog of old shows, but when it comes to new shows, it's had less than a successful hit rate for me. It's funny, I tweeted about this last night. I really liked Paradise season 1, and I started season 2 last night, and it just kind of hit me as it started. I don't remember a single fucking thing that happened. Not a single thing. And this is the crazy work. It's been a year. A year is actually pretty short as far as like new episodes. These days you expect shit to go 2 or 3 years before you get new episodes of anything. But it was a year, a little over a year. And no previously on for season 2, episode 1. Just drops you right into it, and I'm like, fuck, I don't remember this character.
Really?
Then I realized that like these characters that they were showing were all new, and they weren't in the previous season. They didn't actually bring back Sterling K. Brown's character until the end of episode 1. Thank you. We do appreciate it.
Crisis party. Crisis party.
And if anybody's looking for a recommendation on whether they should watch or not, this better reset and not start over again. I hate it when it does that. Basically, season 2, episode 1. If you remember the show, the basic idea is like they're in this underground bunker in a mountain after the world ends. They find out.
I get a double there.
What the hell? There we go. Anyway,
Wait, are you talking about Silo, or you're saying
no?
that
It's not Silo. It's not Silo.
Oh, so there
it's
are
called
2
Paradise.
Hulu shows about underground.
The other one's Apple
apocalyptic
TV.
bunkers?
I think Silo's Apple TV.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Anyways,
okay.
they find out at the end of season 1, spoiler alert, that you can actually live in the outside world now, and the main character goes out to see if his wife is still alive. Thinks she's still alive. Season 2 picks up with this character Annie, who is like the lady who plays. It's played by Shailene Woodley, and then the lady they cast as her mom it's like spot on casting. I was like, I don't remember these two. Again, no previously on. I'm like, I don't remember these 2 characters from season 1. They weren't in it at all. And if anybody watched The Last of Us, in the first season, when episode 3 brought the whole show to like a grinding halt to do the episode with Nick Offerman and his lover, and they're at the compound, and it completely drags the whole show to a stop. Basically, they start season 2 with that type of story in this one, except for it's Annie and then this guy who comes to, she's living at Graceland, literally Elvis Presley's Graceland after the world ends. And this guy comes with this group of people and they fall for each other. And basically the episode 3 that completely brought The Last of Us to a grinding halt is how they start the second season of Paradise, and then you get to the main character at the end of that episode, and that's where I left off. But the fact that they didn't do it previously on, I'm like, that is like, I guess you can't complain because we're always like, they don't give the audience enough credit. They show flashbacks because they think the audience won't know what they're talking about. This time they just throw you into the deep end. They're like, don't remember? Don't care. So
I'll tell you my guilty pleasure that I've been watching, and I have enjoyed it way more than I thought that I would, is the John F. Kennedy Jr., JFK Jr., Carolyn Bessett story. It is such a guilty pleasure. I don't think
why is it a guilty pleasure?
Because I don't think the writing is very good, honestly, and I think that I actually I don't know. I don't actually think it's a very good show. I can't figure out though why I'm enjoying it so much. So
That's
I
awesome,
guess
sometimes you don't need an explanation.
Maybe so. It does have a great 90s soundtrack though. Maybe it's because it's I'm reliving my youth when that was a big story. So.
I'm gonna play this again. Seriously, this is you won't be able to hear this, but chat, listen to this. Hold on. Wait, is it not playing? Does it not got it in here? There it is. Oh yeah, here's
Yoan Gruffudd, who plays Andrew on
Gruffudd.
Reiner.
So it's Gruffudd, not Griffith.
Gruffudd. Oh, okay. Well, that makes a little more sense.
The other one I saw sounded like he said Griffith. Hold on.
James well pronounce the name of this Welsh actor.
This is the worst thing in the world when you get the how to pronounce something and it's like 45 seconds of
They don't get to the point. I know,
like,
I hate that. I hate that.
I am about to try and pronounce this. This is what I'm pronouncing. Be ready.
Are they doing that for money or clicks?
I can't
or,
be money because it's not like 45 seconds makes your video more monetizable.
I don't know.
All right.
You're right. It's so annoying.
All right. Shane H. Wilder says, okay, I posted a few, i.e. 8 emote ideas from my store of heads from Mean Work. Kellen has seen them. Okay, so you gave Kellen your recommendations for main images. Thank you, because we're looking to add emojis. Brian Bledsoe, also a channel member, thank you so much, says, as someone who watched Law and Crime almost as much as PCC, on here, either the victims are women or female teacher doing with a student.
There is a lot of that these days.
I always wonder if that's just like my algorithm saying like it's only showing you this side of the gender war and they're just not they're not showing me the articles of the men who do awful things to students, but I don't know. I've never looked into the statistics of what's going on.
I think that those stories are less notable just because people just kind of assume that as a default that that's going on. But there's something about, the hot or the semi-hot teacher, getting on with the student. It's just more interesting to people.
I'm listening to this one more time. Here we go.
Whose names doesn't read like it's spelled at all, but it's pretty straightforward. Yoan, that's his first name, Yoan Gruffudd.
He said it with a TH. Don't blame me. It's this guy's fault, not mine.
Well, it might be right then.
Yeah, well, somebody in the comments says, pretty straightforward. Pronounce Gruffudd as Griffith. Okay.
It's the Welsh stuff.
I'm blaming this guy. It's his fault. He's got 2 million subscribers. He'll be fine. It's his fault that I didn't pronounce his name correctly. All right. Shane H. Wilder says, Brett, we agreed that you wouldn't talk about me bullying you in the chat on the show. I thought we had an understanding. Look, man, sometimes you just got to speak up. Corey Anderson says, Alice Evans was the chick who stripped down in the first Chris Pine Star Trek movie. Wasn't that Alice Eve or something else? Or am I...
Yeah, it wasn't Alice Evans. She was too old to be in that movie. She was in
the Chris Pine Star Trek movie, like 2009.
I know. I'm saying she's still. Yeah, no, she was like in 101 Dalmatians or whatever years before that. So she's like in her 50s now. Now I don't know. Maybe right. I thought that was a younger woman though. The Chris Pine thing. You know, one thing interesting with Alice Evans is when Harvey Weinstein was in all that trouble, she came forward and did an interview where she claimed that Weinstein had propositioned her at a party and had told her that if she went to the bathroom with him and let him see her boobs, then he would give her husband a role. And of course, at the time, everyone was like, oh, really? But I kind of wonder now in hindsight if maybe she was just trying to grab some attention, making up some shit. I don't know.
I'm not seeing... Yeah, because if it was 2009, that was not her. That was...
Yeah.
I think it was somebody else. All right. Burned Oils says, Brett isn't afraid of online big words, Mary always tell him. Brett, remember what Olivia said. Gotta always be the bigger baddie. What? I'm so confused. Brett isn't afraid of online big words. Mary always tells him. Brett, remember what Olivia said. Gotta always be the bigger baddie man online. I don't know what any of that means, but I read it as it was written. Corey Anderson says, you think Apple uses the ham... What? The wallet goop egg? What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. But they make so many weird-ass products at Goop, so...
do I think... Oh, I was like, Apple. I'm like, Apple the company? No, Apple Martin.
Yeah, Apple Martin.
It's already escaped my brain. That's
okay. It's not very memorable, right?
Shane H. Wilder, as to like, if she does use Goop products, she better pay full price. If I am Gwyneth Paltrow, you make your own kid pay full price, because that's how you get to be a billionaire. Shane H. Wilder says, why does the name Count Leo Van Hammerslut sound like his family tree does not fork? I don't know. Corey Anderson, wait, hold on, I gotta scroll up here, says virtual panhandling. Yeah, if I had like a cup, it could go like this for virtual panhandling, like that. That would be virtual panhandling. All right, and that's okay because I give stuff. I always give money to homeless people, much to like the dismay of like Mary and pretty much everybody in the chat. Guys out there,
it's situational. It's whatever mood I'm in. But I've learned a new technique that seems to work in warding off people if they're getting too pushy. Like if I'm not in the mood and someone on the street comes up to me and they're starting there, can you give me some money? Then what I'll do really loudly and like totally like genuine, right? I'll be like, money for me? You've got money for me? Money for me? And then they're like, lady, get away from me.
You need to make a video doing this to people.
I should actually.
You would kill it at on the street content. That's what you should be doing right now.
Oh man. Well,
put on the wig, put on the blonde wig and go and start doing that to people.
That's good advice.
S. Bud says, how many Stalin memes do I have to send to Colonel to make her my Olivia? I don't know necessarily. It is famously known in the chat that I wooed my beautiful wife by sending her a meme about Joseph Stalin.
Oh, yeah?
Big picture of Stalin. It says, dark humor is like food, and not everybody gets it. And memes are a good way of figuring out how far a person's sense of humor will actually go without having to necessarily, put yourself at risk.
I see. Interesting mating sorting strategy there. Okay.
All right. Dingus Khan, also a channel member, thank you, says, ate at the TGI Fridays once. 3 of us shared an appetizer platter with 2 waters and 1 pop. Bill was $57.
Yeah, the prices are crazy right now, aren't they?
It's expensive.
It's true.
To eat out. Though yesterday I did I admitted to my beautiful wife as we were going to bed. I was like, I have to admit something. When I was coming home from getting a haircut yesterday, I got crazy bread at Little Caesars. I know I said I wasn't going to get anything. We're trying to save money. But I looked in the window, and it was one of the ones that was ready to go. I hadn't eaten, so I bought it. And she just started laughing so loud because like that was my big
Gets it.
That was my big confession. I bought crazy bread, and then I ate it all. And it only cost $5. So you know what? Little Caesars is still fairly economical.
Yeah, I was thinking that's probably cheap still.
Yep. Corey Anderson, also a channel member, thank you, says you can thank YouTube because they would let me. They wouldn't let me. I think he means wouldn't let me type tiny peen in an offensive manner because we made the joke about Johnson earlier. Shane H. Wilder says TGI Fridays, Cheddar's, Chili's, or Applebee's. I don't even know what the fuck Cheddar's is.
Chili's, definitely.
Applebee's all the way. Applebee's.
Yeah, you must not be in the part of the country for Cheddar's then.
I don't
It's
know.
maybe more of a southern thing. I don't know.
Not that John Stewart has joined as a channel member. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Corey Anderson says Ruby Tuesday, Shane.
No.
I mean, not for me.
No.
That's just me. Plus,
Thumbs down on that.
there's a Ruby Tuesday over here. It's expensive as fuck. Like way more expensive than Applebee's. Like presumptuously expensive for a restaurant of that type, which is likely getting all its stuff from the same supplier as Applebee's.
Well, I've never had a good experience at Ruby Tuesdays, so that surprises me that it's more.
Corey Anderson says, belay my last. I used my rusty memory. You're correct. I don't know your last what? Your last one to Corey Anderson? Or your last one to Shane H. Wilder? Or your last one to me? I don't know which one you're talking about here, but that's okay. Either way. By the way, I do want to thank everybody over on Rumble. Thank you so much for joining us as well. I've even joined in the chat a little bit here today and dropped a few messages here and there. It never comes up as me on the Rumble chat. It comes up as Timcast Media, but thank you guys. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a poll on the show. Applebee's, Chili's, TGI Fridays. I'm not putting Cheddar's on there. Is there another one besides those three? What's the other one? There's got to be at least one more. I don't know what Cheddar's is. Nobody's ever told me. All right. Katie says, thank you so much. Says, hi, Brett. Today I saw Crime 101. I liked it, but spoiler alert, Mark Ruffalo doing yoga is not a pretty sight. Well, Mark Ruffalo doing pretty much anything is not a pretty sight. So I'm glad you liked it, though. I will say that maybe it's the dyed-in-the-wool contrarian nature that I have. But, you know, I'll post about the X-Files. I will tell you the critiques I have and the problems they have going forward. And I am as critical as anybody, I think, about new media. I've got plenty to criticize. But I've just found that people really hate that I actually like stuff. Like, I get a lot of comments that are like, why would you like that show? It's woke. Or why would you like that show? It's stupid. Why would you like that show? There's women in it. Like, okay, maybe I haven't that one, but pretty close
I know
to
what
that
you mean.
one. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm liking Best Medicine, and everybody says, why don't you just watch Doc Martin? I'm like, okay, well, I've seen Doc Martin, at least some of the seasons. Sorry if I'm liking the show. I like High Potential. Why would you like that show? It's like female empowerment slop. And I'm like, well, then I guess I love female empowerment slop as long as the lead character isn't overly snarky and annoying.
When a story is good too, I can get past a lot of wokeness. If a story is good, or if the pace or the action is exciting, or there's something it's involving, I can actually overlook a lot. But it's when I'm sitting in a mediocre film or series anyway, and then I'm dealing with that on top of it, it's really annoying.
Yep. Also, I'm fully willing to point out that sometimes when I go to a movie, sometimes I'm just in a bad mood and the movie it just hits on something that really annoys me, and it's over from that moment forward. And I try to avoid that type of situation. Like when we did our review of Wonka, I was like, look, I fully understand that if I saw this on a different day, maybe I would have actually liked this movie. I couldn't actually even articulate really the things that I didn't like about it. I didn't like it. And I bet you if I went and watched it now, I would have a different opinion of it. But that's just the way it is about stuff like that. Somebody suggested Red Robin. Is Red Robin like... I mean, I literally went to Red Robin for the first time.
Yeah, they're all the
this
same
year.
genre, but I think Red Robin kind of sucks too. But yeah, it's the same genre.
Shane H. Wilder says Cheddar's is like Chili's or Applebee's. They do croissants instead of bread or rolls. I enjoy them. Never been to Ruby Tuesdays. Well, you're not missing anything, my friend. That is for sure. All right. Guys, before we go, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. This show is not possible without you guys, so thank you guys so much for that. I do want to remind you guys, like for the first time, this channel's been around for 4 years now, longer. We have opened channel memberships. If you do want to support the channel in that way, you can go ahead and sign up to do that now. We are working on exclusive emojis. In fact, I was not going to announce the channel memberships until the emojis were ready, but I saw people already signed up today. So if you do want to join this channel and support us, you can do that for us that way. So thank you guys so much. And Kurtz, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
No, where can they find you? You gotta let everybody know where they can find you. Come on, you gotta like promote yourself.
Well, I told them in the beginning, but Colonel Kurtz 99 on all platforms.
Perfect. If you guys want to follow me, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. PCC is here 5 days a week, guys, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, of course, always noon Pacific. We are on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. If you would like to listen rather than just watch the show, you can also rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is a great way to help the channel out. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twix, at popculture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. Guys, we will be back with another episode tomorrow. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.